Ready to start. All right. Well, it's our first PTO coffee. Thank you all for being here. Today we have Maggie Chandler with us. She's our wellness counselor at Oak Hill, and she's going to tell us all about her position and how she works with our students. I'll let you take it away, Maggie.
Awesome. Thank you. Like Maggie said, my name is Maggie, and I'm the new school wellness counselor. So I'm going to share my screen. It is a little bit challenging with not being able to see your faces. So if you have a question or anything like that, you can hold that till the end and I will do my best to answer. But since I can't, obviously, with all the cameras being off, I cannot read faces like I normally would in a crowd. So just let me know if you have any questions at the end, and I will do my best to go over them. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay. Does everyone see this? I guess I can't hear you because you're all muted, huh? Maggie Newhouse, can you see this?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so like I said, my name is Maggie Chandler, and I am the new school wellness counselor. So some of you may recognize me. I have actually been at the PTO coffee meetings in the past when I previously worked at Tri-County Mental Health. So I'm happy to be here in a different capacity, and I'm happy to be working with your kiddos, getting to know each one and every one of you better, and really figuring out how to best fit in Oak Hill. So a little bit about me, just so you know me a little bit more on a personal level. And I'm sure all the staff on this on this call is so tired of hearing the same facts about me that I always say, but that is okay. So I grew up in California, so that was where I was born and raised. And then I moved to Montana. That's where I went to college. And then I moved to Kansas City. So I've kind of been all around. I have two dogs named Maisie and Blue. They're in that picture right there. They're a little wet and they're crazy and amazing. That is a picture of my husband. We've been together since high school, so we've been together about going on 10 years. And we are expecting our first baby girl here in the next 3 or so weeks. So we're coming up on the due date, which is really exciting. And another thing about me is I have always been a mental health advocate. So in my last job, I was the youth suicide prevention specialist. So I really was hands-on with working with that really high risk population as well as schools. So it's something I'm really passionate about, and I'm really happy to be working with Oak Hill on it. So my office is located in the South Building. That's where I'm presenting to you right now. However, I am in both buildings. I split half my time in both buildings. So the kiddos in the other building see me as much as the kiddos in this building. So I do split my time. Let's see. This is not working, of course. Oops. Okay. So as far as contact information, I'll use this again at the end, just in case you aren't comfortable asking a specific question to me during the presentation. You can always feel free to reach out to me through my email, which is listed there. I have an office phone number as well as a work cell phone number. And the reason for that is because I am between both buildings. I want to make sure that I don't miss an important call if I am out of my office, which is pretty often. So school counselors are not what they used to be. So when I was in school, it was strictly academic. They helped you with things like SATs, college prep, those kinds of things, which are so important. But school counselors now really focus on that social and emotional development with students. So that's my goal, is to really focus on making sure that they have the tools and the skills, those social and emotional development skills. So as they grow, so do the skills that we provide them and the tools that we provide them with. Because as we know now, which we didn't really learn before, is that our physical health and our mental health are absolutely connected. So we need to make sure that we're caring for both because our job is to care for the student as a whole. So I'm really focusing on that social and emotional development, and I'll dive into how we do that in a few minutes. So what does a counselor do all day? That is a question that it really changes by the day. But some of the things that I do is collaborate with school staff, parents, students, and community organizations. So I'll dive deeper into this in a few minutes. However, you are going to hear multiple times throughout this presentation how important I think that collaboration is. In order to support our students, we need to support each other, and we need to know that we are working together. We might wear multiple hats, and it's important to know which hat is on when we're trying to support our kids or when we're trying to support our students, whatever that might be. So I'll go over each role in a few minutes. Developing programs to promote positive, safe, and respectful school culture. So I can say, based on I've worked in many schools, and Oak Hill already is really great at this. Because it's a smaller school, you see that the teachers and the staff just truly care and respect their students, and the parents are actually really involved, which is really refreshing. And so important for the wellness of their students. So doing whatever I can to support this, but we also want students to take the lead in terms of their mental wellness. So in terms of school culture, so a lot of times there is a stigma around mental health. So if we're focusing on providing them tools at a young age, and we're having conversations about things like healthy coping skills, about building resilience, those kinds of things are normal in their vocabulary, then it actually changes that school culture. So they feel more comfortable coming forward and asking for help when they need it. And they also are taking the lead in terms of their own mental health. So we want the kiddos to take a leadership role in their own mental health and the mental health of their school. So there are things that I plan on doing, like partnering with the student council, which I've just chatted with them about that actually, in order to create mental wellness campaigns that are peer-to-peer. So they're really focusing on that self-care. They're focusing on identifying those emotions and helping their peers do so as well. Other things that I do is using data to address the needs of the students. So one thing that is true is that not every student is starting in the same place. Not every class is starting in the same place, and that is absolutely normal and absolutely okay. But I don't want to come in and assume that I know exactly where that student is starting or what they're struggling with. That's where your feedback is really important. That's where teachers' feedback is really important, and the student themselves. So on every single one of the ACORN newsletters that you've received so far this year, there has been a link to the parent needs assessment, as well as the parent referral form. This is really the opportunity that parents get to voice how they think the counseling program can best benefit their specific child or kiddos in their grade or age group. So it kind of gives me a starting point with their kiddos on how to move forward and guide classroom lessons, etc. Because if they're really, really great at identifying their emotions, but they're not great on dealing with them in healthy ways, then we'll touch on identifying emotions, but we'll really dive deeper and focus our efforts on healthy coping and dealing with them in healthy ways. So figuring out where each starting point is and going from there is really important. So if you didn't get the opportunity to fill that out, because I know the beginning of the school year has a ton of paperwork, and that's absolutely okay. I will be sending out another one at the beginning of the next semester. So there will be another opportunity for you to kind of reevaluate, see how you think the counseling program can best benefit your kiddos. Delivering classroom guidance presentations, I'll go over that in a few minutes, and as well as small groups and short-term counseling, I'll go over that in a few minutes. I also want to be providing parents with mental health resources and education. So it's really important that you as parents are involved in your child's mental wellness, and we want you to have a hands-on role in terms of having conversations with your kids about difficult topics. And with younger kiddos, it can be something as easy as reading a book that talks about identifying emotions or a specific healthy friendship, whatever it might be, and asking them how they would respond in a situation like that, and really having that follow-up conversation. With the older kiddos, it might be a little bit more challenging. However, it's not impossible, especially if you do it regularly. So you can have conversations with them about things like technology and things like healthy friendships, healthy coping, etc. And sometimes it's hard to start those conversations. So I actually do have tools. If you would want, I have a little kit that's meant for middle school age. And it's a card, and basically every time you're in the car or you have 10-15 minutes, you pull out a card and it has a question on a specific topic that you can kind of go over and just have an open conversation with. So some of them, for example, are technology, and you just answer one question a week or one question a day, however you want to use the cards. But it allows a healthy, open dialogue about those conversations, because you might think you know where your kids lie on specific things, but it's important to have those conversations anyways about their mental health. So if you're interested in having some of those, getting some of those cards, I can hand those to you if you would like. But that's just one example of parents getting involved in their child's mental health. And then hosting in-services roundtables and workshops. So those are some examples. I know that was a lot, but some examples of what I am or plan on doing. So how does a student see me? So how do you see the school counselor? So parents can refer to the school counselor. So if you're noticing something and you think, I think they might benefit from chatting with you, they've been a little anxious lately, or I've just noticed this change in behavior, whatever it might be, then you can always refer your child. I'm currently working on creating a permanent location in the hub. So just like Nurse Kathy has her awesome webpage in the hub for you to visit at any time, I'm currently creating one of those for the counseling department. So that will be the permanent location of the referral form, and you can fill that out anytime throughout the school year. And I will know to meet with your kiddo. Also, sometimes parents, as well as school staff, when there's something going on with a kiddo, they might not have time to shuffle through, and they just shoot me an email, and that works as well. However, I check both referral forms and email, so whatever works best for you. School staff can also refer if they're noticing behavior changes in the classroom or something concerning in the classroom. They can refer to me as well. And students in grades 4 through 8 can self-refer themselves. So this is a hard copy, a piece of paper that they fill out and then they put into a lockbox. I check it daily to see if I have any self-referrals. The reason why we start at this age group is because oftentimes at this age they start to talk to each other a lot more before talking to adults. So we want to give them the opportunity to say, I'm struggling, or my friend is struggling and I don't know what to do about it. I would say in my experience, most of the self-referrals are usually they are unsure on how to handle a situation with a friend that they are concerned about. So those self-referrals are really important because we want to make sure that the students have the opportunity to come forward and ask for help and not handle it on their own. Like situations where we want adults involved. I'm not sure why this is not working. Okay, it's just a little slow. As far as classroom lessons, so my goal is to be in the classroom once a month, and I want to make sure that my face is regular to them, that we're talking about, a bunch of different topics. Some examples are below. However, that is not necessarily each month we're talking about these things. It's just an example of some topics that we might cover. I really am an advocate for that universal education. So making sure that each one of our kids are getting this information, because we don't want to cherry pick who we think would benefit from the information, because sometimes it's the kids you wouldn't expect that are struggling in a specific area that benefit from it. So we want to make sure everybody gets the information and gains the skills on things like kindness and empathy. So I've been in the younger kiddos, we've talked about kindness this last month, and depending on their age is different topics and different lessons that we do. But identifying emotions, that sounds really simple, but even adults struggle with that. And it's really important, because if we can get a kiddo to identify, put a name to a feeling, then they are more able to deal with it in a healthy way. Then it's not just something that's overwhelming that they don't understand. If they're able to name it, then they can come up with some sort of solution to it. But other examples, conflict resolution, healthy friendships, healthy relationships in general, coping skills, healthy choices, self-respect, self-care, anxiety and worry, trusted adults, depression, how to help a friend. These are things depending on their age and depending on where the starting point is. These are some things that we might go over as a class. It's really fun to be in the classroom at all ages, but it's fun to see where they are at developmentally as well. So small groups. So we have not started small groups this semester, and depending on how things go with COVID and everything, this might be something that we start next semester. So usually small groups are about 6 students per group. So the reason why we haven't done small groups yet is because it usually requires classes mixing and grades mixing. And right now we want to keep your kiddos as safe as possible. So that's not always possible. However, what a small group is say, for example, we go over healthy friendships in a classroom setting. So everybody gets information, but we want to dive a little bit deeper. So we host a 6-week small group session, which will be meeting once a week for 30 minutes at a time, just diving deeper into those skills and topics. So you can refer your child to a small group, or the parent can, or the teacher can refer the child to a small group. However, regardless, I would like parent permission. So parent permission is required, and it's not necessarily, because we're going to be going over difficult topics, but it's more so because I want you to be involved in your child's mental health. And so getting your permission and explaining you things that we'll be talking about each week with your kiddo and ways that you can talk to your kid about it would be beneficial to them, because it brings it home. So it doubles up on that information, which helps it stick with them a little bit more. Okay, so the school counseling program that I really want to, when I was thinking about creating the program from the ground up, I want to make sure it's holistic. So making sure that it is focusing on all aspects of the student's development, that it's balanced. So a lot of times we as adults preach that kids need to balance their lives a little bit more. They need to cope in healthy ways, all of these kinds of things, but we ourselves struggle with that. So I want to make sure we are modeling that in the counseling program while focusing on individual as well as educating in small groups. So creating that balance for the kiddos and letting them know that they always have someone to talk to if they feel like, they need a trusted adult. And proactive. So this is really important to me. So working upstream to develop preventative programs to ensure a positive, nurturing, and safe school environment. So focusing upstream is really important to me. It's very important to learn things like depression and anxiety, but I also want to equip kiddos with the tools earlier on how to deal with things like anxiety, how to deal with things like sadness in healthy ways. So we want to make sure that we are, giving them the tools at a young age and building upon those tools as they grow. And reflective. So I think every single program needs to be reflective, meaning that we're evaluating what worked and what needs to be changed in the years to come. So a lot of that will be your feedback, will be the students' feedback themselves, and the teacher and staff's feedback. So every year I plan on evaluating the program and seeing what tweaks need to be made so we can best meet the needs of your kiddos. Another thing that I mentioned that is really important is that we all work together. So the students, parents, teachers, admin, counselor, all working together. Obviously, we have the common goal of healthy kiddos, but it's really important that we figure out which hat we wear and how to best benefit our kids. So how can students help? Students, like I said earlier, are oftentimes going to each other a lot more than going to us, especially those older kiddos. So we want to make sure that they understand that they are oftentimes the first line of defense. So we want to make sure if we're seeing changes in our friend that we're concerned about, that we are always encouraging them to go to an adult, because a lot of times they are scared to go to an adult. They think they'll get in trouble. So changing that mentality, changing that narrative that asking for help does not mean you're in trouble. Asking for help is actually the responsible thing to do. That's really important for us to tell our kids. Serving as peer mentors. Again, when COVID is no longer here, we'll be able to mix the buildings a little bit more, but this still counts now because there are siblings in opposite buildings. So it's really important that we teach the kiddos to serve as mentors to the younger kiddos. So teaching them how to communicate that mental wellness is important, teaching them healthy coping skills and how to help younger students with those as well. Serving as watchdogs, so that kind of goes back to that first line of defense, meaning always reaching out to an adult if they are struggling or need some extra assistance and not trying to handle it on their own. If it is an emergency, especially. Attending small groups when needed, attending short-term counseling when needed. I'll tell you, even since I've started, I have some kids who just, on their break, they just need a mental break. So they will come in and they'll just sit in my office, not necessarily talk about anything specific, but they just need a few minutes to themselves and then to, reevaluate and then head back. And that's absolutely okay. So sometimes they want advice. Sometimes they just want you to listen. And I'm here for both. And advocating for struggling students. So that goes for help-seeking behavior, really increasing that help-seeking behavior. So as far as how teachers can help, so working together with the school counselor, so that's really important. The great thing about Oak Hill that I've noticed is that teachers are really just want to help your kiddos. And because the class sizes are smaller, they really know your kids, which helps in terms of them knowing what's different in terms of behavior and being able to keep a close eye on them. Taking care of themselves and practicing consistent self-care. So I'm a really strong advocate for parent and teacher and staff self-care. I think it's really important that we practice what we preach in terms of teaching kids how to take care of themselves and how to take care of their mental health. So I think that healthy teachers mean healthier students and healthier parents mean healthier kids as well. So practicing what we preach and helping them and providing them with tools to do that. Acting as a trusted adult to students. So as much as I would love to be a trusted adult for every single one of the students, the thing about being a trusted adult is that we don't get to decide who their trusted adult is. They do. So we want every single one of the teachers to act as a trusted adult to your student, just in case if they're an emergency and they need someone to talk to, they have someone and they know they have someone there. Communicating needs with the counselor and referring to at-risk students. If they're noticing changes in behavior, if they're noticing, they just don't seem like themselves, referring to me is always really important. And maximizing parental involvement. So we want to make sure parents are involved and communicated with because you play such a huge role in terms of their wellness. Speaking of, how can parents help? So parents can model that self-care and healthy coping behaviors and verbalize it to your kids. So what I mean by this is very common. We come home and it's been a long day and we say, gosh, it's been the worst day. I just need a drink or something along those lines. And now I'm not saying that if you say that, your child's going to struggle with substances, but I am saying that creates connections in their brain. So if they've had a rough day and this helps them feel better. So what are ways that we can make those healthier connections? So I've had a really rough day. I'm going to go for a walk. I've had a really rough day. I need 5 minutes to myself. Really verbalizing that not every day is perfect. Some days are harder than others and normalizing that. And what are healthy ways that we can deal with that and verbalizing that out loud and showing them healthy ways to deal with their with difficulties and challenges. So continuing to educate yourself and your kids on mental wellness and coping strategies. So as parents, I'm sure you know that the learning never stops as they keep changing. So does everything else. So continuing to educate yourself on their mental wellness, where they're at, what they can, where they're at developmentally and what you can assist with as a parent. Act as a trusted adult. A lot of times, like I said earlier, they don't want you to jump on fixing their problem. They just want to be heard and to be listened to. So instead of jumping on telling them how they should deal with the problem, sitting back, letting them listen, processing, and helping them process through it. So asking them how they would respond to it, asking those open-ended questions so they have time to really come up with a solution is really helpful as well. Attend parent presentations, whether it's something like this or others that I will be sending out in the future. Communicate with teachers and the school counselor if you're noticing changes at home. We are all on the same team in terms of wanting to support your kiddos, in terms of wanting to support you as much as we can as well, and seeking further mental health support when necessary. So how can admin help? So we have really great admin here from what I've seen so far. So acting as positive role models and partnering with the school counselor to develop high morale amongst staff. And really just embracing the counseling program. The thing about Oak Hill that I think is really great comparative to a lot of other schools I've worked with is admin and staff are just as involved as teachers and people who see your kiddos every day. So because it's a smaller school, that care and love that teachers have for your kids is really brought over to the administrators as well. So how can the community help? So oftentimes we focus solely on our little community within Oak Hill, which is fantastic. We want to continue doing that. But we also want to partner with outside community resources. For example, Tri-County Mental Health, where I previously used to work, is a really great mental health resource in the area, but also community coalitions. So staying up to date on mental health resources that are available and possibly provide extra support to our school when needed. So that's really important in terms of mental wellness. I want to scroll up a little bit and make sure that I didn't skip over. So I'm not sure that I went over the individual counseling. I'm just going to touch on it a little bit more. So in terms of individual counseling, that is what I'm here for. So short-term counseling. If you're concerned about your child, I'm here to meet with them and support them any way I can. However, if it requires long-term counseling, meaning it's a chronic issue that I feel that they can benefit from further supports, I will connect with you and refer out. However, if your child is already seeking mental health support, but you think that collaborating with their mental health professional would be beneficial in order to bring some of what they're practicing outside of school into school, I'm absolutely here to help any way I can. But I just want to make it clear that it's short-term counseling and I will refer out if needed. I think that was the only one that might have been skipped. However, that was a whole lot of information. I know I appreciate each and every one of you sitting through all of that. I want to throw my contact information up there again, just in case you want to reach out to me and ask any personal questions after this presentation. But as of now, that is what I have for you. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Maggie. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. That way people can turn their cameras back on. But thank you very much.